there's bull and bear cases here. My job is to look at all sides of it. And this is the big difference between a lot of the kind of the uber bulls, right? They only want to hear the positives. They only want to hear the positives. It's why a lot of them were buying at 65,000 or 69,000 and then got wrecked down to 20 when I called that move. Ultimately, what you have to recognize is that you have to look at both sides and then you look at probabilities. Like I said, everything's probabilities. Coin surging last week up initially on the back of that spot ETF approval and then dumping out. Look at where we went to.
Gareth starts things off by talking about the clash between the super hopeful Bitcoin fans and the more careful realists. He paints a picture of the recent market roller coaster, especially for those who were too optimistic and bought Bitcoin at its highest point, only to see it drop from 65,000 to 20,000. It's a story of high hopes meeting reality. But no more waiting. Let's dive deeper into the talk with Gareth Soloway.
We've got Bitcoin here. So again, Bitcoin surging last week up initially on the back of that spot ETF approval and then dumping out. Look at where we went to here. Classic little level, a retrace to support. So there's a lot of support here. And here we are. We find ourselves hanging on to support. The first thing that catches my eye, number one. Okay, now listen, there's bull and bear cases here. My job is to look at all sides of it. And this is the big difference between a lot of the kind of the uber bulls, right? They only want to hear the positives. They only want to hear the positives. It's why a lot of them were buying at 65,000 or 69,000 and then got wrecked down to 20 when I called that move. Ultimately, what you have to recognize is that you have to look at both sides and then you look at probabilities. Like I said, everything's probabilities. Okay, so what we have here, there's some positives and negatives. Number one, a positive is we're only back to levels that we basically saw about 10 to 15 trading days ago. So as of now, this is just a run-of-your-mill retrace, and it's holding this support line. That's important. As long as it holds that support line, okay, it's fine. Then the negative, though, is, number one, this was a topping tail. All right, number two, you have to start watching as a technician what type of pattern could this be, right? Could this be a bearish pattern? Now, it's still an immature bearish pattern, all right? And there's a difference. So when you have a drop and you have one candle sideways, immature, 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 slightly more mature, very mature, very mature, okay? The idea is the more days that go and continue to create that pattern, the more mature the pattern gets. Just like a human being, the more mature, the more it has power to it. And the idea is that probabilities are very low in the early stages of it playing out, but as it matures, the probabilities increase. So right now, this is still an immature bear flag, but if we get a couple more sideways days here, it becomes more of a mature pattern and probabilities begin to shift towards the downside, okay? So those are just, that's something that we have to watch. The only other thing that I would just point out that has me concerned that we could have not just a multi-week top here, but a multi-month top, is that if you go to your daily chart, and your weekly chart, and I flip this up here. So this is your weekly chart on Bitcoin, right? So if we look at this, what type of candle is this? So we know we had a topping tail on the daily chart, which is bearish. But again, daily chart tells you what's going to likely happen over the next 10, 15 days. A weekly chart topping tail, though, that's telling you now over the next, let's say, 10 to 12 weeks, maybe, what could be ensuing. And that's a bearish indicator, right, when you get that reversal. Lastly, okay, if we go to the monthly chart, now the month's not over. So this is the key, and this is going to be the big one. But as of now, this is a topping tail on the monthly as well. Now, if the monthly puts in a topping tail, you could literally be looking at a many-month high on Bitcoin. And again, we know that going into the halving, sometimes we see a dump, but that's not that far away now. But it does kind of speak to whether or not we see a risk-off movement here. And a lot of people won't want to hear that. I'm just telling you, this is the candles are the candles. You go in textbooks on technical analysis, or as some people like to call it, astrology for men. You basically have this candle formation, this candle of a topping tail, is in there for decades, if not 50 years, as a signal because it's been back tested for that long. Now, it doesn't mean it's not failable, right? It can still fail, but again, you just have to be aware of what it tells you. And if we go to the all-time, let me go back to the daily chart here. If we go to that all-time high on Bitcoin and we do a retrace from the all-time high of 69 down to the lows of this cycle. Where did Bitcoin top out? Exactly at the 618 right there. That's cool, guys. So again, my point is that that's actually my favorite retrace. So there's lots of Fibonacci numbers. There's the 0.5, there's the 382. The 382 is not bad too, but it's more of a shorter term move. But let's bring it back to center screen. But really, again, the 618 is my favorite. When I see a 618 retrace, obviously you need multiple factors. You just can't go off the retrace, the Fibonacci, but that one's a pretty darn cool one.
Gareth Soloway takes us on a cool journey into the technical side of Bitcoin. He breaks down the recent jump, sparked by the approval of the spot ETF, and the subsequent drop, showing us the exciting charts that have their own story. Gareth talks about a classic scenario where Bitcoin is balancing on crucial support. But Gareth isn't your average analyst. He's like a pro chess player in the world of technical analysis. He says we need to look at both the good and bad sides, laying out the possibilities like a chess master planning their moves. Topping tail, possible bearish patterns, and the maturity of the market. He dissects everything precisely. As Gareth warns about the chance of a big change in the crypto world with a potential multi-month top, we see the power of candles, not in a magical way, but as a language of charts. Topping tails on daily, weekly, and monthly charts are warning signs. Are we about to see a big shift in the crypto scene? The candles might hold the answer.
Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs reported earnings this morning. Both companies did better than expectations. I was just looking at their charts. We'll look at them in just 1 second. The stocks initially were up. They've started to turn back and rally or sell off to the downside. Next, Trump. We heard about Trump yesterday in the caucuses in Iowa. He ended up blowing out his opponents. Again, that is a key thing for his nomination going forward. Next, UBS raised its target price for the S&P 500 to 51.50 from 48.50. Futures are trading lower on the back of yields and the U.S. dollar moving up. Again, this is a combination of the fact that we basically have instability continuing to grow in the Middle East, and there were some hawkish comments from Europe on Monday when the U.S. stock market was closed. Microsoft, AMD, and NVIDIA are all rising pre-market. AI continues to be the word out there. My guess is, and this is jumping down here to Tesla, this is probably having something to do with Tesla and Elon Musk saying that he will not be pursuing more AI stuff until he gains a bigger controlling stake in Tesla. And again, that would be a benefit to NVIDIA, Microsoft, AMD, all of these AI plays. All right. Apple is falling sharply again today. They cut their prices on the iPhone in China. We heard just a week ago, basically, that iPhone sales, or I should say chip sales for phones, were very, very weak. And Apple, again, is down. There's going to be some good trade levels right there. And natural gas is falling sharply today on the back, actually 10% just in the last couple days. So nice little move there. All right, Bitcoin holding key technical support between 42 and 43,000 on the back of last week's ETF approval. And lastly, and this one's important down here, I hope you guys can see it, the New York Empire State Manufacturing Index came out at minus 43.5. 43.5 minus. Expectations were for minus 5. So minus 5 minus 43.5 is what the number came out. Last month came in at minus 14.5. Certain economic data here is really starting to accelerate to the downside, and we'll have to keep an eye and see where things go.
Gareth Soloway uncovers the whispers in the financial world. Big names like Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs are reporting good earnings. Trump is making bold statements, and UBS is raising the S&P 500 target. At the same time, AI is doing its thing with companies like Microsoft, AMD, and NVIDIA making headlines. But there are also some not-so-great spots in the spotlight. Apple is taking a hit with a drop in iPhone prices in China, natural gas is going down, and economic data, especially the New York Empire State Manufacturing Index, is painting a worrying picture. And there it is, the heartbeat of the crypto world, Bitcoin. Gareth talks about its toughness, sticking to key support levels after the recent ETF approval. The crypto story continues. If you've been with us so far, big thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to Bitcoin Zella for your daily news. The link is waiting below. That's all for today's crypto news. Stick around for more updates, insights, and analysis on cryptocurrencies. Share your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more exciting content.